Hi everybody, this is Tor Storley, and I am back with another video. In this video, we're gonna take a look at how to install and set up your local computer so you can actually run models like large language models, whether all these open source models for Ollama, which is by Meta. And we're also going to see how you can actually set up and run the latest and greatest that everybody talks about these days, Deepseek-R1 model. Now, it comes in many different flavors, and we will take a look at how you can get these models, set them up on your Windows computers, in my case, and how you can run them. And then we'll also look at how performant they are depending on their size. So let's get started. So I opened up my browser here and I went to ollama.com, and this is what you're going to see. Very simple page, very elegant page, just the way I like it. Not a lot of clutter. Now notice what it says, download. Well, that's what you're going to do. You're going to download this installer that will basically set up your Ollama environment. Now I already happen to do this, so I'm not going to do it again, but you click on this download, it downloads, and then I can't remember if you actually have to run an executable on Windows, and if so, just run through it and you'll be done. Once you're done with that, you can also see, you can go to GitHub, or you can go back and you can see, you can go to models. So if you look here, notice the Deepseek-R1 model is available to you to use with Ollama. So Ollama is like a wrapper around all this stuff that allows you to run all these models. So what you need to do is, this Deepseek-R1 is really a recent model, so it will execute slower than other models perhaps. There are other models in this list here that you probably should take a look at. It all depends on what you're trying to do. Some of these models are better for like in this case, reasoning. Give it a problem and it will show you how it thinks about it, and it will show you how it executes it. But there's other models here that might be good for other tasks, like, hey, I want to summarize this document. I want to create an image, what have you. I don't know. I don't know if any of these are creating images, but I have not tested this too much. But there's a lot of models here, so you kind of have to read up on them. And also, there's different flavors, as you can see, 8B, 70B, 405B. Now, that stands for parameters, so there's billions of parameters. Now, on my computer, which is a XPS, a Dell XPS 15 laptop computer, it comes with a built-in GPU of, I think it's a GeForce, it's a 1050 GPU. So it's a really low-end GPU. So if I'm going to do a lot of these type of, try to host a lot of these models, I will need to beef up my computer. So if I'm going to do this ongoing, I will have to probably invest in a desktop computer and get a really beefy GPU on it and a really good CPU. Now, you're going to need a lot of GPUs when you train models. I'm not so sure if you only use GPU when you actually run the models, because you are going to use some CPU powers too. And I notice when I actually run these models on my computer here, it's about 50-50 GPU and CPU. So I don't really know. I created some image generation models using fast AI in the past. And when it came down to actually running those, we only needed the CPU. I trained them on the GPU, but I only ran them on the CPU. So I'm not sure how that works. And again, that's not my field of expertise, but I let the computer solve it for me, and I just kind of observe the speed that it generates. So here's all the models that you can take advantage of. Now, if you're a minimalist, you don't have to install Docker. You don't have to install the Open Web UI. You can just run right in command window. So once you install Ollama and you download a model, you can simply do something like this. You can say, go to some folder, like in my case, it's the desktop. So I can say Command CMD, and it will open up a command window that looks like this. And all you really have to do to run a model, if you have one available, is to say Ollama. llama, run. And let's say if I want to run the small DeepSeek model, I'll simply say DeepSeek -R1. And when I run this now, you can see it fires it up and it says, okay, what do you want to ask him? So let's say, time is it? Something like that. And it's thinking and it runs through it. I suggest getting online together. It doesn't really matter what it says. I'm just showing you that it will actually work. So you could technically just write your commands directly here in the command window. So that's an alternative if you don't want to download Docker, if you don't want to use the open web UI. So you can run it right here. So all you need is install Ollama and download a model. So that's another option for you. Once you install this Ollama installer, you're going to need to download something to hold it in so you can make sure that it's secure when it actually runs in your environment. If you want to set this up, you probably should use Docker. So it's very easy to do on a Windows machine. And in the past, I tried Docker before and I just gave up on it because it seems so all these commands and all this stuff. Now it's very simple. You just go to docker.com, download Docker Desktop, and choose whatever environment you're going to download it to. So in my case, is this one, download for Windows AMD 64. Now, be aware, this will run for a while. I thought there was something wrong. I thought it was hanging on my machine. But then I did a Copilot search, and it says expect 5 to 10 minutes install time. So I just waited and it finished. So it looks like it's just hanging, but just be patient. So the third thing then is if you don't want to run your Ollama in the command window, which some people prefer, I don't, you can also use this open web UI. You see this? Now, I recommend you go to docs.openwebui.com because here they give you the commands you're going to need in order to set this up. So go here. And it's basically a user-friendly hosted AI platform. So it looks like ChatGPT and so forth. You can see a picture of it here. And you can see what it will look like when you're done installing it. Now, it comes in 2 flavors. And what happened to me was I installed this one first, but it was kind of slow on the slightly bigger models. So I went back and I deleted my container that had this set up. And I installed this one instead. And what happened was it just added a few things to that install because a lot of it was the same, but it added some additional stuff. So if you have a GPU and you want to take advantage of it, you should probably run this command right here. Okay? It might speed it up slightly more. So make sure you take that into consideration. So here what you do is you run this command and it will install it. And then you make sure you leave your Docker open when you run this stuff. So open the Docker desktop and just leave it there. And what happens when you're done with that is that when you look at your Docker, it will look like this. So as you can see, it adds this open web UI to the containers. And if you look over here, you can see it's using a CUDA, which is the GPU. So it's installed with the right one now because first time it had a naming conflict when I tried to run the other one on the top of the first one. So I had to remove it. I had to delete it like this. And then I just ran this again. Notice it gives you this port, localhost 3000 8080. At this point, you could shut down your Wi-Fi so you know it's not going to talk to the internet. And there's been a couple of videos I noticed that because there's always a scare, this is a Chinese-made model, right? This DeepSeek model. You always worry that behind the scene, they're going to start collecting a lot of information about you, But the people who tested this, they noticed all the web communication. They said, it stays local. So I don't think there's a problem with it. Even when you connect to the internet, it doesn't suddenly transfer a bunch of data about you. At least as far as we know, you never, ever know. So... But if you're willing to take the chance, I was willing to take the chance, and I'm very skeptical typically. But I install it locally, but I'm not going to run it on the web. There's also an API you can run directly on the web. That one, you better be careful with because that could be just collecting information about you and give it to the Chinese authorities, which is probably the last thing you want. All right, so here I can open this. And when you open it, it looks like this. Notice this. It's like a chat window. How can I help you today? You can speak and you can, I don't know what this is, but notice up here on the left-hand corner, there's the models. And I have already installed a Ollama 7B model, 7 billion parameters. The DeepSeek, and I picked the first one I tested was the 1.5 billion, which is running pretty well on my machine. Now the 7 billion, when I toggle between these and test them out, somehow it's like my fan is running constantly and it's very slow to react. This is not the right equipment to run these models, I can tell you that. Now one thing you can do though is you can click the plus sign here and then you can select the model and you can just search for them. So you can say, Ollama, and then you can just pick the name of whatever model you're searching for, and then you can install it directly here, which is really nice. You can also run 2 models at the same time. You see this? DeepSeek-R1 1.5 billion, and Ollama 7B. So if you run this, if you write a command here now, run side by side. I'm not going to do it because one will just be hanging, the other one will do something. So I can minus this. Let's start with this smaller model. And I added a couple of commands only just to test this stuff. Now this is supposed to be a reasoning model. So I came up with this problem just to test it. So I say, okay, let's make up a scenario. My sister is 34 years old. I am 2 years younger than, I should be my sister. My brother is 3 years older than my sister. How many years older than me is my brother? So here I'm asking a question that it has to think through and perform the math. So let's see what it does and see how quickly it runs with 1.5 billion parameters. So it's thinking and it comes back fairly quick and it runs very nicely. The speed is pretty acceptable to me. So notice what it says. Let's break down the problem step by step. Determine your sister's age. She's 34 years old. Calculate your age. 2 years younger than your sister. Well, your age is equal to sister's age minus 2 is 34 minus 2 is 32 years, which is correct. Well, I'm not 32, but in this scenario I am. So find your brother's age. Your brother is 3 years older than your sister. Brother's age, sister's age plus 3. So that's 37 years. Okay. Determine how many years older the brother is compared to you. Difference in age, brother's age minus your age, 37 minus 32 is 5 years. So it handled the reasoning very well here in this case. Now, this is not a very complicated problem, but it's still a problem. Now, to be perfectly honest with you, I don't even know what the answer is supposed to be here because I didn't pick a math problem from a math book or anything. But I made something up just to see what it did. So here I say, hey, why don't you solve this equation? Ax squared plus bx plus, what happened here? I just hovered over it. I didn't run it. It already came back with an answer. So let me run it to see what it does. So this is still the 1.5 billion. And it's thinking, it's reasoning, and it comes back with an answer. That's the wrong one. So why did it do that one? Okay, hold on. Maybe it didn't accept, maybe it ran the same one over again. Let me run a new one here. So I'm saying ax squared plus bx plus 678 is 0. So let's see what it does. All right, so it's thinking, and this is real time. I'm not stopping this video. I'm not slowing it down or speeding it up, anything. This is running in real time right now. So it's still thinking. So I don't know why it's thinking so long, and maybe it goes through a lot of steps. But it's running. You can hear the fan on my computer. So it's working hard. But notice it comes back with equations. So it uses latex, I assume, behind the scenes to create these on the screen. So here you can see the reasoning. So they give you the problem here. It says to solve a quadratic equation, which this one is, ax squared, right? Now, I can't say for sure that this is the right answer. Somebody who knows math can probably do. But what I'm looking at here is the steps. Now, normally, if I knew the answer, I would probably enter an equation that I know the answer to, but I didn't do that here. I was just curious to see what it did with this. And as you can see, it produces a result. Whether it's correct or not, I don't know. The more parameters you add here, meaning 7 billions, 32 billions, what have you, probably gives you a better answer. Okay, so another thing I want to try out too is this is DeepSeek. It's a recent kind of model. It's using reinforcement learning. So that's one type of model. Another one I wanted to use is this Ollama, trained on how to create, applications in like C#, Python, the usual suspects. So I want to just test this model too, because this is supposed to be really good for coding, to give you good answers. What I did was I just created a prompt. So let's see what it does. I have 2 prompts. Now, this is a 7 billion parameter model by Meta. So if I put a prompt in like this, can you write a C# function that calculates a mortgage schedule using 360 months and rate, I should probably say a rate of 3.5%. So let's see what it does. I might run a little slower because it's 7 billion and my computer is not have a good GPU. Another thing we can do, I can do Control-Alt-Delete, and I can go to Task Manager. And once Task Manager opens up, I can go to Performance. And as you can see here, you can see how much CPU is being utilized and how much GPU is being utilized. So as you can see, right on my GPUs here, you can see this is GPU 1. You can see how it's using memory here. And notice my CPU is at 66% here. So you can see 50, 49%, 26%, 49%, and so on to execute this task. And as you can see in the background, it hasn't done a thing yet because it's now here it goes. So as you can see, you can keep an eye on the CPU here. Notice what it does. It writes out the actual code, and you can see how it's working up here. And I'll move this away after a little bit here so you can actually see what it's doing. But notice it keeps writing code here, and we'll look at that in a second. And you can monitor my CPU and GPU usage here by looking at these. This is the GPU 0, GPU 1, which is the NVIDIA GeForce 1050 GPU that I'm using on my computer. Notice here, it spits out a bunch of code, and then you can see it's printing out a little slower than before. Okay, so now it's done. So let's close this window and take a look at it quick. So I created a function in C# called calculate mortgage schedule. It passes in principal, passes interest rate, and number of months. So here you can see it sets up the monthly payment by using this function to calculate it. Now, I'm not going to test this, and I don't know how good the quality of this code is. Now, if you feel inclined, you can test it. But I just want to see if it can actually produce it. Now, if I'm going to start using this on a regular basis, I obviously would double check and see how accurate this stuff is. You can see here, it reasons with you, hey, if you want to create a mortgage schedule for 100,000, for this percentage and so on. So anyway, so it did create this code for you. And second prompt, it says, I want to get some stock data from Yahoo Finance using Python. I want to get data from 01/01/2014 through December 31st, 2024 for the following tickers. So it suggests that okay, so let me correct that. For tickers, ABT, ABBV, Apple, and okay, so it's Abbott, it's AbbVie, it's Apple, and it's the S&P 500. Can you help? Okay, so let me run that. Okay, it started right away in this case, so that's a good sign. So it appears to be working okay speed, not fast, but not too bad either. So here it creates the Python code, as you can see, on the fly. And now it's going to iterate through it for using a for loop. It creates a pandas data frame, it looks like, and passing in the, I'm not sure what that is, but what is it using? It's just using pandas. I don't know if that will work. anyways, it produced some code, as you can see. And the output looks pretty decent too. And now it's going to calculate the returns and adds that to the data frame. Okay. Anyways, it needs to be tested. But I just wanted to show you how you can actually set up your local computer so you can actually run these models locally. And, you know, these are all open source. And you can search for models by simply typing them in. And of course, you can find those models on the Ollama website under models. So I hope this was useful. I hope this was educational enough for you to take advantage of. And again, if you have a souped up computer with a good GPU, by all means, put it down on your local computer and run it there. That way you avoid all the privacy and the data sharing that everybody's so worried about. Okay, if you like my videos, give me a like and consider subscribing to my channel. That'd be wonderful. Have a great day, great night, wherever you happen to be in the world. We'll see you in the next video.